Paper Gnome here, and welcome to the assembly video for our Paper Dungeon prototype. This is printed on cardstock, which is what we recommend. There are two main components to the Paper Dungeon. There's what we call the towers, which is this page, and then the walls, which is this second page. Now, in order to build this, you will need scissors, an X-Acto knife, cutting surface, and a straight edge. Now we have some traditional lines here. So the solid lines are going to be your fold lines. The dotted lines are going to be the lines that you cut. And then there are a few areas here where it says cut after folding. Some of these, it's just because it's easier to fold them before you remove these pieces, either because if it's an edge piece like this, it's providing you a little bit more leverage to fold this piece so that you're not trying to fold just like a tiny piece, or these pieces here where you're basically cutting out the center of the piece. It's easier to fold it beforehand because this does affect the strength of this particular panel, so it's just easier to fold it before you cut that piece out. On the tower sheet, there are several different types of towers, and each one is marked with a small little tag and a letter at the top. Now, you could cut these off, but I found them useful for identification, so I just went ahead and left them on there. So the E is for the end of a wall. L is for an L-shaped corner. I is to connect two walls together in a straight line, so it basically kind of makes an I. We have multiple different L's. We added an extra endpoint here. An X would then be, a wall intersection that looks like this, and then a T would be a T-wall intersection. Now the walls are almost exactly identical. The only difference is the length. So we have some essentially 1-inch walls, 2-inch walls, a 3-inch wall, a 4-inch wall, and a 5-inch wall. And the PDF that I provided actually has 2 copies of the same page, just so you can, but of course you could, print as many as you needed. So first we're going to start with the towers, and we are just going to cut around the outside of these towers. Okay, as you can see, I've cut out this wall end and this L-shaped corner piece. So I've cut around the outside. So now I'm going to do the interior cuts. As you can see, there's a little tab here, one here, one here, one here, and then here, 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 and here. Now, there's this cut right here and this cut right here. And honestly, I wait to do these last at the very end, because depending upon your paper thickness and how good a job you do with these folds and these creases, the need for this cut can actually move a little bit. So this is going to fit in this slot right here, and then this is going to fit in this slot right here. This is going to go here, and this is going to go here. So I usually wait to do this to the end, just because to make it more precise. So now that I've made those interior cuts, I'll go ahead and get my cutting surface out. And I'm just going to score the folds using the dull edge of the X-Acto knife. Of course, a nice, strong, especially like a metal straight edge will help with this a lot. But, you just want to try to line it up the best that you can. And the folds are here, 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 and here. Like I said, I usually save this fold for last because, like the cut here, it may move a little bit just depending upon the width of my paper and how good a job I do folding each one of these. Same thing on this end point. Here, 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 and here, and then save this fold. Okay, so now that I'm done scoring those major folds, I'm just going to go ahead and fold each one of these pieces. And I go ahead and basically just going to fold and unfold them at this point. So the crease helps us get a nice straight line. And then I'm just going to fold this piece the same way. So now that we've got the folds completed, we can go ahead and cut off the pieces that are marked cut after folding. So we can use the scissors on these end pieces. But then we need to use our X-Acto knife on the center pieces. I think it's worth going over the shape of this center cutout in a little bit more detail. So the top is just squared off like a rectangle. On the bottom, you've got a little bit of a W shape. And you'll see how this shape is used to connect the walls. But kind of what's important is that you have this little rise right here, because that is what's going to catch the walls and hold it in place. And this needs to be deep enough that you can insert the walls. So you'll just want to cut out both of these sides. The L, T, I, and X pieces are all exactly like this. They only vary in the number of cutouts on the walls. The wall end piece just has the one cutout, and then these walls are a little bit thinner. So those are really the only two types of walls, the only two types of towers. The only thing that varies really is the width of these center walls on the end piece, and then the number of cutouts on the other pieces. And on these cutout pieces, I actually try to cut on the outside of the dotted line, because it's better for it to be a little bit too big than a little bit too small. Okay, so now that we have our cutouts completed, we can go ahead and assemble. And the pieces, essentially, these towers roll up just like a paper tube. This long piece on the edge goes on the inside, and these small pieces go on the outside to lock everything in place. Okay, now once this is put together, based on your fold, you can see how close you got and if you have to adjust on this line at all. So for here, I actually made the, because of where this line is actually hitting the edge here, I actually made this fold just a little bit past the line. Okay, here was just about perfect. Okay, and once that is done, then you can look at where the cut line actually wound up. So here, the cut line is actually way short, and I think this is a printing error, so this is something that I will fix before I get the final prototype out there. Same thing on the bottom. You can see it's pretty short on the bottom too. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust those. And like I said, it's not something that can be perfect every single time, because it varies based upon the width of the paper that you're using and then how accurately you actually make these folds. So it's really just something you got to play by ear. So I already cut this previously, but I'm going to fold it just a little bit to kind of create the opening that I need. Slide this inside, then line that piece up, and then do the same thing on the bottom. All right, and then just fold down my E so that I know that this is an end wall, and that is how the end wall works. Okay, so this L is going to assemble pretty much the same way. The walls are just a little bit thicker in some places. So you roll it up into the tube, and like I said, this long piece goes on the inside where these flaps go on the outside. And just like before, you'll want to kind of look and measure and see where this fold actually hits once you've taken care of everything else. And then this actually is half fold and half cut, because it's going to slide right into this corner joint here. So usually the best way to do it is to just kind of feed a little bit of the corner in like so, and then just slide it the rest of the way in. And then once it catches, you just slide it down like so. And then same thing on the bottom. Get the corner started, slide it all the way in, and then wiggle it a little bit until the two pieces come together, okay? And then you just fold down that L, and then you've got your tower. Now all the other corners assembled just like the L corner. Is the only difference is the number of cutouts. Now you can see that there are some cut lines here on these walls. That's for kind of future enhancements. I'm going to probably use that in the door system, and also, you know, so you could like hang a torch on the wall. So they're not necessarily for the construction at this point, but I do have them there because I plan to use them for future enhancements. Okay, moving on to the walls. So I'm going to cut out around the edge, paying attention to make sure I go ahead and cut these slits right here on the four corners. Okay, I just want to show you this corner here. So you can see the cut here. It's not just a straight flat cut. It is a little bit of a triangle cut. And that space is really helpful and necessary because it's going to slide over that little W in the wall. And so having some space here really helps the pieces come together easier. So now we're going to do the internal cuts. There is a line right here, and then a triangle right here. And then there's one on the other side as well. And just like I said with the towers, if you're going to err on cutting a little bit too big, I try to remove the dotted lines and the gray area completely. All right, now that we've cut out those pieces, you want to make sure that these little side pieces here do get cut completely, that they are completely separated. Now we're going to go ahead and use the back of our X-Acto knife to go over these two fold lines in the center so that we get a nice clean fold. So now that we're done with those creases, let's go ahead and fold. And you'll see as we do the folds, these pieces pop up. I call them the horns. And that is exactly what you want. Like I said, that's why it's really important to make sure that it's separated, because if not, then these will pull on each other when you're trying to do the folding. All right, now that we've got two towers and a wall, I can show you how the pieces fit together. So the horns are going to hook into the top, okay? And then you slide the piece all the way up. Next, the bottom you squeeze together, and that allows it to slide into this, basically the bottom of the W. And then that nice wide slot that you cut before allows these two pieces to spread apart like that and that. So then they're on either side of the W, and then you slide the piece all the way down, and then that seats the wall in the bottom. And now you can see it won't even pull apart. To take a wall apart, you just reverse the action. So I go ahead and slide it up and then pinch it together. And then that lets it come out through the center of that W again. And then I just remove the horns. So that's how the pieces fit together. And at first it can be a little bit stiff, especially here on the bottom, trying to get these walls around the corner here. Sometimes it means that you need to cut the wall a little bit deeper, but usually once you get it do it a couple of times, it starts to loosen up a little bit. Okay, so that's one side of the wall. Do the same thing on the other side of the wall. Hook the horns, slide it all the way, pinch the center, separate the center, and then slide the piece down. That's how you build walls in Paper Gnome's Paper Dungeon system. Okay, so some troubleshooting steps if you're having trouble getting the walls and the tower pieces to connect together. So first of all, if you've done a good job cutting out all of the gray and all of the dotted lines, then this usually isn't the problem. The problem is usually on the wall side of things. So just make sure that this cut is deep enough on both sides and that this has a nice triangle to it, that it's not too narrow. You can always make it a little bit wider to help things fit a little bit better. And also that here at the top, that this is deep enough. Because if this is too shallow, then the piece sits too low to be able to fit nicely, okay? And then if this is too narrow, then it's hard for it to slide across the peak of that W right there. Okay, so essentially if things are having challenges fitting together, the idea is to just, cut a little bit more away, and then usually the pieces will work just fine. I wanted to say thanks for participating in this little prototype experiment to see how things are working for you guys and whether you like it or not. There is a QR code on the sheets themselves. There will be a survey on there along with the instructions and of course the files so that you can print as many of these as you need. I'm really looking forward to your feedback. Let me know what you think, and happy building.